What the hell was that? I need the sage, I need the Palo Santo, I need all the things because I have no idea what just happened. So let's go through this. This was really no debate. It was a Yo Mama contest.
Did you come to say Yo Mama jokes or tap dance?
Right? It was two candidates playing the dozens. It was Donald Trump showing out completely, talking over every single word that Joe Biden spoke, and Joe Biden not being able to respond. He almost seemed like he wasn't ready for the debate. I have no idea what happened in prep, but what I can tell you is he thought that he was debating Mitt Romney, but somebody should have said, breaking news, this is Donald Trump, this is not your ordinary debate. I thought it was interesting that right from the beginning, they jumped in around the Supreme Court pick. Donald Trump correctly stated that elections have consequences. That is absolutely the case. He talked about Merrick Garland, but what he failed to state in the analysis around Merrick Garland is that Merrick Garland was nominated for the Supreme Court by Barack Obama in March of 2016. That was during the presidential primary season. Now, Amy Coney Barrett, I don't even know if that's her name, child. ACB, that's what I do know. She was nominated just last week. We are well into the general election and well into people not just getting ready to vote, but actually casting ballots. This election started yesterday, or really last week. So it's completely different. The other thing that I think is important is that Joe Biden on this answer talked about the fact that people are voting, so it was important for people to wait. Shortly thereafter, Donald Trump starts throwing in socialism. He starts name calling. And then Joe Biden says,
my party is
and
me.
Socialist
right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of.
I thought that was an effective response because it's true that after a presidential nominee is selected by a party, that nominee then signs off on everything related to the platform. That specific answer was about the ACA. But it was a problem because not long after that, Joe Biden responded to Chris Wallace, who was serving as tonight's moderator, you're not going to be able to shut him up, which is partially true, but it was clear that this thing was off the rails initially. My first real problem with Joe Biden comes next. When Chris Wallace asked him if he's going to add to the court, Donald Trump says, yeah, are you going to pack the court? He didn't answer with an absolutely, we will add justices to the Supreme Court and we will add judges to the Circuit Court of Appeals. Instead, he didn't really give an answer. And to me, that showed real vulnerability. You have to be willing to show people in an environment like this how important the actual fight is. I didn't see fight from him then, and that is immediately, y'all, when I got worried. So right after that, he says stuff like, will you shut up, man? Keep yapping, man, to Donald Trump. But the thing is, if you're going to go there, you have to be willing to go all the way there. I don't necessarily want to encourage violence, but I think that he probably should have fulfilled a little bit more of a threat here. Like, really show Donald Trump that he's disrespecting you and you got the wrong one. That's the only thing that Donald Trump responds to. He also, I think, to say something positive about Joe Biden's response, I thought he had some really effective answers around the COVID response. For example, there was a moment where Joe Biden looked straight into the camera and he says, how many of you have an empty chair across from you because of COVID? That is a super effective moment to connect with American people who are still very much reeling and hurting, not only because they've been economically adversely impacted by coronavirus, but also because they have family members who are no longer with them because of COVID. There are so many of us who have someone who's just 1 degree of separation, if that, from COVID. And I thought that that was a super impactful moment from him. And I wish that he would have had more, because when you start talking about how many American people have been impacted by COVID, and then how many American people have actually died, well into the 200,000 at this point, that's a real problem. It is a crisis. It is a pandemic. And that's how it should have been treated on tonight's debate stage. I thought it was in some moments, but not all the time. I also thought it was important for him to be able to say,
this is the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically, you know that.
Super impactful moment. And while Donald Trump said, well, yeah, I was being sarcastic, Joe Biden's response quickly should have been, yeah, but people really did that. That's what needed to happen. And then when Donald Trump started picking on Joe Biden, saying that he was last in his class, not first in his class.
So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe.
That was a moment for Joe Biden to hit back and say, I didn't even know you graduated. For what it's worth, you know, there's a whole lot of lies being thrown. I know, I can't tell you even graduated from anywhere. Not only that, but you cheated everywhere else. I'm sure you cheated in school. You're cheating the American people right now. It's those kinds of responses that resonate with people to ensure that they know that Joe Biden is not out of touch with what is happening every single day and what has happened every single day since Donald Trump was elected president. The other thing that I thought was interesting is Chris Wallace, when he talks to Donald Trump about COVID, they go into this banter about whether or not people should be wearing masks. Donald Trump says he thinks they're okay. I thought that this was an interesting miss for Joe Biden because Joe Biden's campaign has really doubled down hard on, please make sure you wear a mask. I felt like it was a miss. And then for Donald Trump to say that there's not been any real negative effect of COVID at his rallies, I'm sorry, Joe Biden, this is where you say a former presidential candidate actually died at one of your rallies. In fact, it was your opening rally. That former presidential candidate was Herman Cain. He's no longer with us because he died because he attended one of your rallies and contracted COVID. He didn't do that. Also, I felt like overall, Joe Biden was really having a 2012 debate against a 2012 presidential candidate instead of debating a 2020 demagogue, which is what we have. Someone who is hand in hand, right in the heart of destroying democracy. And I feel like he needs to treat him as such. He needs to treat Donald Trump on the debate stage as the existential crisis and threat that he is. And that wasn't clear. Then there was this moment where there was a conversation around federal taxes. Donald Trump's, that is. Huge New York Times expose. Opportunity for Joe Biden to hit him hard on, again, being a cheat, a thief, and a liar. Doesn't really nail that. He, in fact, says, why don't you release your tax returns? I had a deja vu moment. That deja vu moment was Hillary Clinton 2016. This is not a Hillary Clinton 2016 debate. Now we know what Donald Trump is about. Now we've seen him cheat the American people. Now we've seen him violate the Hatch Act. Now we've seen him violate ethics laws. And we've seen him do it with his children, right? This is a moment to say, forget your tax returns. The New York Times has already done an expose on that. We know you're a cheater. You've cheated everyone else you've ever done business with. Now you're cheating the American people. The buck stops with you, and I'm going to beat you this fall, because actually in just 30-something days, because no one can afford to engage in an American economy the way that you've engaged your businesses. And then he talked about Joe Biden talked about he was going to end Donald Trump tax cuts. What are the Donald Trump tax cuts? Lean in here. Talk about the ways in which millionaires and billionaires are benefiting in a tremendous way under Donald Trump, while people right now are just struggling to pay their bills because Donald Trump hasn't done what? That's it. Passed the HEROES Act. Won't even push the Senate to take it up after the House has already passed it. That is where people's stimulus money is. That is where coronavirus relief is. That is where Joe Biden should have leaned in. The other thing that I thought was fascinating is Donald Trump was able to continue to echo this talking point around the Obama economy was worse than the 1929, or the Obama recovery was worse than that of 1929. And the fact of the matter is that it's not the Obama economic recovery that was worse than 1929. It's what's happening currently in this coronavirus pandemic economic recession that, frankly, we're just on the other side of. That's where Joe Biden should have hit back and didn't. The most mind-blowing moment of the night to me was when Donald Trump continued to drill in on Joe Biden, hitting his son Hunter Biden on this Russian payment of $3.5 million. And he kept hitting it. This thing has been, as Joe Biden kept saying, discredited, which means it's fundamentally not true. Let's call it what it is, a lie. Stop saying it's discredited. But how are you going to let Donald Trump hit you on Russia and you don't hit back?
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son.
Like what? All of what's happened with Russia, a whole ass Mueller report, all of that, and you don't hit Donald Trump back one time on Russia interference in 2016, Russia interfering in elections right now in 2020, all of whatever has happened under the table with Vladimir Putin, refusal by Donald Trump to issue sanctions against the Russian government, a clear report now from the UK that there was a coordination with Russia to deter black voters from participating in 2016. You let Trump hit you on Russia and you don't hit back? Come on, son. I can't. That's ridiculous. So then this was a flag for Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace says, after completely, well, I shouldn't say losing control of the debate. There was never control of the debate. It was a problem from the beginning. Chris Wallace says, if I ask you about race, you can answer whatever you want. What are you talking about, man? That's not a good way to start a debate. That's not a good conversation to have. That's not the way to moderate a conversation. Then he pivots and talks about Charlottesville, where Donald Trump, of course, said there were fine people on both sides. Donald Trump doesn't have to actually answer for this. In fact, Joe Biden then pivots and talks about the number of black people who died because of coronavirus under Donald Trump's administration. And while I think that's important, super significant, because I believe all black lives matter, I think that Donald Trump should have to be held to account for what he said in Charlottesville. Responsibly and a great debate tactic, Donald Trump hit back against Joe Biden about the crime bill, the 1994 crime bill. This is something that I've seen as the blind spot for the Biden campaign, really from the outset. It's not just the crime bill. There are several iterations of criminal justice, I don't even call it reform, policy that Joe Biden was a part of authoring that really adversely impacted black people. These are one of these areas where I feel like, based on everything that's happened, especially since really the protests against racial injustice and police violence that started with Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor this summer, where Joe Biden has this unique opportunity to really pivot, to see things differently, to understand, based on everything that's happened, even the disproportionate impact COVID has had on black people, to say, you know what, I see this differently now. I appreciate you all calling this to my attention. I not only want to apologize for this, I want to pivot away from this policy. I see how toxic it was. I know that at the time there were black mayors, black elected officials, even standing with me calling for this, with Bill Clinton calling for this, but it's not right. The consequences of the crime bill are detrimental, and I want to pivot away from that. I think people would openly accept that. I think I certainly would. But he's not done that yet. And in fact, I didn't hear a satisfactory answer tonight when he was called out on the crime bill. And I will acknowledge too, because I think it's important, when you are a pathological liar like Donald Trump, Joe Biden doesn't have the luxury to speak out of both sides of his mouth. But I also don't think he should want to strive for that. I think he should want to strive for speaking with conviction and doing the right thing, especially when it comes to not only the Democratic base, but the very base that pulled him, dragged him, lifted him up and out across the finish line. There was this other moment where Chris Wallace challenged Donald Trump on ending racial sensitivity training for the federal government. It's not just federal government agencies. Donald Trump has actually also taken this on with government contractors. They're actually getting contracts revoked for it. That is ridiculous, especially this week where Donald Trump releases this platinum plan, which sounds like a credit card, which means it's borrowed and not permanent, for Black people. Well, in this Black plan, it's not just economics. He talks about Juneteenth being a federal holiday, a bill that Kamala Harris has already signed on to in the Senate. But when you have the power of the pen as president, where you're the executive, you don't have to put out grandiose ideals and lofty plans. You can get Congress to pass bills, and that's what he should be doing. Instead of doing some of this, he should be about that action, boss, and get some of these bills passed. One good example, actually, let me give you two. Two good examples of things he could immediately do are ensuring that he supports the Congressional Black Caucus's Jobs and Justice Bill. This is policy that was born out of Congressman Richmond, who also serves as the chair of one of the chairs of Joe Biden's campaign. While he was chair of the caucus, the CBC dropped a robust white paper on everything that Black Americans have to lose under a Donald Trump administration. They followed up that paper with a comprehensive bill. That bill has been reintroduced. This bill is something that Donald Trump, based on what he says he stands for in this platinum plan, could easily say, I stand with the CBC. And Nancy Pelosi, I urge you to immediately get this bill to the House floor. And by the way, Mitch McConnell, you should also consider this bill. And as soon as you both do, I'm going to pass that bill into law. He's not done that because he's all about verbosity and not about action. Same thing with the Justice and Policing Act, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, where Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Congressmember Karen Bass ran point on this bill. They've pushed it. It is not as aggressive as I per se would like, but it's certainly much better than Donald Trump's toothless executive order around policing. And it's much better than Tim Scott's bill on policing. Donald Trump, because he wants to have a platinum plan for Black Americans, should be pushed to also ensure that that bill passes the Senate, right? That is super important. It's already passed the House. Donald Trump isn't saying anything about these things because he'd rather talk and not deliver for Black people. And so Joe Biden could have used that as an opportunity to once again tap into his base and say, I know some of the right things to do with Black people. And here are two things that I would do in my first 30 days as president of this country. Sign Justice and Policing into sign Justice and Policing into law, and sign Jobs and Justice into law. Those are two misses that I think that we have today. When Donald Trump is calling Joe Biden on law and order, Joe Biden should be saying, how dare you? You are the most lawless president this country has ever seen, and your badass kids. Like, while Donald Trump is pivoting and hitting hard Joe Biden's kids, Joe Biden should be saying, what about the emoluments clause? What about the Hatch Act? What about ethics rules? You all are blowing all of that stuff up. You have been lawless. You're trying to bankrupt this country just like you bankrupted all your damn businesses. He didn't do any of that. Another big flag tonight for me, like egregious, like dog whistle, like foghorn, like shouting it from the mountaintops. Donald Trump had the opportunity to condemn white supremacy. And instead of saying, I condemn white supremacist behavior, activity, hate crimes, this dude told the Proud Boys to stand by. And shortly thereafter, he went into all of the ways in which this election would be invalid, all of the ways that this election should be discredited. He is the sitting president of the United States. He's calling the election a fraud, a sham, and potentially a rigged election. What's so interesting about all of this is Donald Trump had the opportunity to sign H.R. 1 into law, which is supposed to give states the money they need to ensure elections are thoroughly protected. But instead, he has benefited from some of the challenges that exist in states to really shore up election security. He's never demanded of Mitch McConnell to pass that bill that the House passed almost as soon as they were sworn in to Congress. And instead, he has kind of treated this or taken this lightly because he's benefited from the types of egregious behavior around electoral activity. We certainly know he's benefited from election interference by foreign governments, most notably Russia. And so that was damning to me, to have someone who's the leader of the free world calling the process by which he was sworn into office a sham, rigged, and a fraud. I certainly believe he's an illegitimate president, but tonight he demonstrated just how illegitimate he was. As Joe Biden prepares for the next debate, I would urge Joe Biden to remember he is debating a demagogue. You have to expose this man for what he is. There are no niceties. There's no civilities. This is gloves off, just battle royale. You have to remember what you're fighting for. If we're going to keep saying democracy's on the line and there's all of this at stake and we're asking people to risk their lives and everything to go to the polls, you have to show them that you're willing to fight just as hard. And so as Kamala Harris prepares for her debate and Joe Biden prepares for his next debate, remember, y'all, this is gloves off. We're at a war and we need to act accordingly. That's my debate wrap up. I have some other things. Main thing you need to know is Donald Trump was out of line. No surprises there. And Joe Biden didn't seem prepared. So I hope that he'll get better because we need him to win. Joe Biden is who we have, y'all. And I'm not willing to sit at home. I'm not willing to throw my support behind a demagogue like Donald Trump. And I would urge you to really take this seriously. There's a lot on the line. It's not just the Supreme Court. It's not just Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. It's not just health care. It's not just wages. It's not just racial injustice. It's not just police violence. It's not just the economy. It's not just COVID. It is all of those things and more. I want to feel safe. I want to get up in the morning and not feel the anxiety that I've felt over the last 4 years. We know that white supremacy has been a part of the fabric of this country from the very beginning. It's time for that to be dismantled. It's time for us to reclaim all of our collective power to ensure that every single one of us has a voice. And the way we do that is to go and just meet them at the threshold of democracy. And that's with our votes. We know our power. Our power does not end at the ballot box. It starts there. It's one of the ways that we exercise our power. So I encourage all of you at home to exercise your power. Be informed. Be engaged. Make sure these folks earn your vote, as Kamala just said in the podcast that we did on this past Friday. They do need to earn your votes. But understand one thing. Donald Trump has not earned it. In fact, he has shitted on your votes. So let's be clear about that as well. We know what's at stake. Let's act accordingly.